What's good, man? It's your boy Jay Styles. You know I'm rocking with the Chozn Magazine. Man, I got a very special guest, or should I say very blessed guest, Reggie Gay. Man, he's a radio host, Black Gospel Radio show he has going on. Man, how you doing, Reggie Gay?
I am doing good, and thank you very much for the opportunity to come and be on your program. It's an honor.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely, it's a blessing being in your presence right now.
Thank you.
You definitely have longevity in this field.
I've been blessed. God has favored me. Anybody that goes into any career path, and especially this, because this is what we do, I encourage them to always acknowledge the spiritual. Now, your relationship with God may not be mine and vice versa, but I think everybody at some point, Jerron, needs to be motivated and encouraged from a higher sphere, from a higher plane. And I encourage everybody to find what that is that works for you and then tap into it, because it will keep you motivated.
Okay, Reggie Gay, very wise man, very wise words.
Thank you.
Well, I feel like you probably wasn't always this wise. So,
No.
tell us like how Reggie Gay became Reggie Gay we know today. This wise man.
Lord help, where do you start? That's a loaded question. Unpack that, right?
Yeah.
We don't have all day, do we? No, I'm very fortunate that my parents raised me in the church. That's where the spiritual thing comes from me. It's not something that I put on Sunday or whenever people celebrate their Sabbath, but this is a lifestyle for me. This is the way I was raised. And so it followed me out of high school into college. Now, I knew I was going to school after high school. I knew I was going to college, but it was going to be a business major because my grandparents and my parents had real strong entrepreneurial spirits.
Okay.
So when you see that as a child, you can't help but kind of gravitate to that. Exactly. But anyway, so graduated from high school, Bryan Station High School, Lexington, Kentucky, and came to registration that summer here at Eastern. By the way, love Eastern. We'll talk about that later. And was at the Alumni Coliseum. Back in those days, it was an analog registration. They didn't have all these fancy doodads that you guys have now. You don't even have to go. You just log in online and register for everything, right?
Right.
We were in the Alumni Coliseum, and Ron, I honestly don't remember how I got in the broadcasting line. I got in it, though, and this little lady looked up at me and said, "Broadcasting major?" as in the form of a question.
Uh-huh.
And I looked with my naive self, looked down at her and said, "Okay."
Okay. All right.
And so you asked me, who is Reggie Gay? That's how it started.
Okay, gotcha.
For me, it was all destiny.
Yeah.
It was all that God thing again, So earned my degree, emphasis on the word earned. Then anybody give me nothing. Earned my degree from Eastern. Love Eastern because it's the foundation of my career. It's where I learned the craft of broadcasting and mass communications. They taught me the ins and outs. They taught me the protocols and the formats and everything. I had some great teachers. And so I'm delighted to be able to come back and support students like yourself.
Right.
And pour into some of the experiences, good, bad, and indifferent, because it ain't always good.
Right, yeah.
Exactly. There are instances where, you have to take the bad and learn from it, and that's kind of Reggie Gay. You asked me, who is Reggie Gay? That's me. I'm, as I mentioned, born in Louisville, Kentucky, and grew up in Lexington, Winchester, Mount Sterling. Okay. That's home for me.
Gotcha.
My daddy still lives on the farm that his parents bought back in the 1950s.
Okay.
So, my family's steeped in tradition and heritage and legacy in central Kentucky. That's where we're from. And so I count it an honor and a privilege to make my way back and kind of get involved with Eastern. That yes. I just absolutely am grateful to for helping me to launch my career, maintain the career, and have and enjoy the status that I have in my career now.
Okay, yeah. So, fast forward from EKU, you got into the media field, and you decided to go to Atlanta, right?
Right. Yeah, had to go to Atlanta because at the time I finished school, I worked at a couple of radio stations here, WLAP. Right back then, at that time, it was being branded as Rock 94.5 WLAP. Okay. Then they had the AM station alongside AM 630 WLAP. And so those were initial experiences. WTLA.
Was it always gospel?
It was not gospel.
Okay.
We'll get to that in a second. These were secular radio stations with what I would call secular formats. But that's okay, because the model is still the same. It doesn't matter whether it's a secular station or a country station or a gospel station. It doesn't matter. The formatics and the business is still the same. It's about ratings and revenue. And so as destiny and fate would have it, that's where I started my career. Only to realize, Ron, by the time I got to Atlanta in the early 90s, that those formative years, what I learned at Eastern, the theoretical that I learned at Eastern, the practical experience that I earned from working at WLAP and WTLA and WVBA radio station over in Frankfurt, those were all practical experiences that would help designate and set Reggie Gay apart when he showed up in Atlanta.
Okay.
When I got to Atlanta, I was like, okay, now who is this guy?
Right.
Because I had come from an environment in Kentucky where you were taught protocol, it was business. A 60-second commercial was 60 seconds, not a minute and 18 seconds.
Yes.
You know, it was just all just incredibly good experiences, the foundation of my career. In addition to Eastern and those radio stations here, these were all foundational things.
Gotcha. Okay.
That established me very quickly when I got to Atlanta.
So what was it like, moving from that, that demographic of Kentucky? Me and you, we're few far and wide,
Right.
in the demographic of Kentucky. Going to a place like Atlanta where you see more people look like you, doing
Sure.
the same things.
Well, that's one of the reasons I had to move elsewhere, because things began to dry up here. There just wasn't any opportunity. I was raised in the church, Providence Baptist Church, Howard's Creek,
Okay.
that sits literally in the middle of my grandparents' farm.
Oh.
Here's the story. Pioneer Daniel Boone came through the Cumberland Gap, settled Kentucky years and years and years ago. Daniel Boone built the church on my grandparents' farm. So, yeah, let that sink in. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
How about that?
How about that?
It's just, everybody has a testimony. Everybody has a story. And my family's story is incredible, but that's not why we're here. We're not here to talk about
Right.
Reggie Gay.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we're going to stay on.
We're to talk about Reggie Gay.
Right, yeah.
So, in the early 90s, I packed my car up because opportunities were drying up. For a young African-American broadcaster that was articulate, that knew the business, that was capable, that was driven and motivated, I needed, because I wanted to do black gospel radio, I needed to move to a market where there was opportunity for a black gospel music. Somebody like myself was interested in black gospel to excel. It didn't exist in Lexington. I was on the Christian radio station WJMM, where Jesus makes money. Yeah. I was on WJMM for years and did well there.
Okay.
But black gospel wasn't the focus of that radio station. And so fate and destiny called me to Atlanta. I got there and was like, oh, wow, you're right. You go to Atlanta and, there's radio stations, plural. The time I moved to Atlanta, there were 4 black gospel music radio stations.
Oh, okay.
Woo-hoo,
Was it all black gospel all day, or just?
It was. It was 24-hour black
Oh,
gospel music
okay.
radio stations. Because the market could sustain it.
Right.
It wasn't able to be sustained in Lexington,
Oh, yeah, for
Kentucky.
sure.
They could do a day part or a niche weekend program on the stations in Lexington, but there just wasn't enough support from the business community. Remember now, radio is about ratings and revenue. You're going to make a radio station, a black gospel music format. Can we sell enough advertising to pay the bill?
Exactly.
That didn't exist in Lexington at that time, so I moved to Atlanta where there was opportunity.
Okay. So, you have the, your radio host for, what's the radio station?
Right now, ReggieGay.com.
It's ReggieGay.com.
Right. See, the business changed, and I'm glad you asked that. In about 2005, I'm thinking it was, the broadcasting business went through a paradigm shift. People are now being driven to the internet. It's the new phenomenon.
Right,
In the early
exactly.
2000s, turn of the century. It's 2000 now, 2005. And so one of the things I learned here at Eastern, I remember the lectures like it was yesterday. It was be ready, prepared to reinvent yourself when necessary.
Yep, that is key.
And so in the 2000s, early 2000s, by 2005, I think it was, the business had changed. Okay, we're not necessarily running to radio stations like we did for employment anymore. We're now creating a footprint on the internet whereby people can come online and get your content. Now, still work for other radio stations as a content provider, but
Gotcha.
the model changed for me.
Right. So,
I provide content.
so Reggie Gay is his own entity.
Reggie Gay is his own brand.
Exactly.
Anybody like yourself, you and I have had conversations, anybody that's in the business, I think that's one of the ways that you could perhaps insulate yourself. Two types in the business, liabilities and producers. Liabilities are disposable because all they do is come to work and do it, and they may do a good job. But it's the producers that know how to create the content, and then God bless you if you can go sell a sponsor and generate some income.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Liabilities, nothing wrong with being a liability if that's what you want. But I'm telling you, based on experience, that a producer is a lot more attractive. So that's where I hang my hat now.
So let me say this. Let me rephrase your question. So how many markets is Reggie Gay show in? I know you're in a lot of markets. I guess I was specifying one.
Right now, 15.
15.
15.
And
right.
that's on air and TV.
And TV, right. Now, again, here we go back to Eastern. I keep referring to Eastern because, gosh, they were just so incredibly effective with me and learning the business. The teachers that were in the Department of Mass Communications at the time. And by the way, we were in the Wallace building at that time, is where we were when I was a student at Eastern. They not only taught us the theoretical aspect of broadcasting theory, how you put this together, how you do this, how you produce, so on and so forth. They also taught us the business aspect of broadcasting and how to pick up the telephone and call the program manager or the operations manager and sell them on an idea. Nothing, Ron, and anybody else that may be listening to your podcast, nothing happens in America, and especially in broadcasting, until a sale is made. So they taught me how to not be afraid, but to pick up the phone and call one at a time, television stations, and say, look, I'm Reggie Gay. I'm based in Atlanta, and I'm from Kentucky, and I've got this idea. It's a gospel music video show, or I can deliver my gospel music content to you online. Remember, the internet leveled the playing field.
Correct.
The early 2000s. So because Eastern taught me to pay attention to trends and reinvent myself when necessary, I kept myself relevant in the industry because I remembered what they taught me.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're very ahead of your time, but like knowing how to like switch from like just being hired from a regular radio, regular radio stations to actually becoming your own entity and selling yourself as a brand. That's like, I mean, that's just
Sell it.
I mean, I still still seeing regular radio hosts just doing radio, not even doing what you're doing. Like I really like after you broke it down, like it makes so much sense to do what you're doing rather than doing it the other way. Because I mean, you're ahead of your time. You're gonna see more and more radio people doing what you're doing, and just know that you was the first.
Well,
one of the
I
pioneers.
appreciate the acknowledgement, but again, and why do I keep referring to Eastern? I keep referring to Eastern because I want people to understand who may be watching your podcast how important it is that I was on Main Street in Lexington, Kentucky, years ago, and had already established my name in Lexington, and this guy knew me. He walked in, he said, "You Reggie Gay?" "Yes, I am." He said, "You don't have to go to school to be no DJ." I said, "No, you don't, but it makes a difference."
It does.
How many people have you heard on the air for a season and then they fell off the radar?
Yep.
It's those of us that understand how to brand self and manage brand and create content. Those are the folk that last a long time.
Okay, so we got to the Reggie Gay show. So tell people who want to listen to the Reggie Gay show and what can they expect. How does the show go?
The program is Black Gospel Music. I want to be clear about that. I am clear about my passion for gospel music. As I mentioned a couple of times on your show here today, I was raised in the church. So this is a lifestyle for me. It's not something that I put on Sunday at 9 o'clock and take it off at 5 o'clock. No, I live this. It's what I do. My father, I love my daddy. He said to me years ago, Ron, "Reginald," he said Reginald. He wanted me to hear everything he was saying.
Yeah, so
he called my whole name. God, what have I done? I got to explain to James Gay. My daddy's name is James. People in Winchester and Lexington know him as Jimmy. Anyway, he said, "Reginald, pick one thing and stick with it." Did you hear what I said?
Yeah, one thing.
This business, a lot of careers, but especially in the broadcasting business because there are so many facets to it. If you're not careful, You're doing a lot of stuff, but you don't really have anything to show for it. So because my daddy imparted that wisdom into my life, Reginald picked one thing and stick with it. I latched on to the black gospel thing. So you asked me, what can people expect when they come to Reggie Gay? You're going to expect gospel music. That's what I do. I have been noted as an excellent programmer.
Okay.
You go to some communities, urban towns, and you turn on the black gospel music radio station, and all you hear is one type of gospel music.
Gotcha.
Well, you and I both know that gospel music is a vast array of
For sure.
songs and music and writers and composers. You have to have an ear to pick those things out that are contented. I'm big on words. What is the artist and what is the singer trying to convey?
Now, speaking of that, so, say there's an up-and-coming, gospel singer, will they be able to contact you and, maybe get them, their song on your radio? Do you,
Absolutely,
you break
yeah.
up?
ReggieGay.com on the internet, that's where I hang my hat now. Again, nothing wrong with working at the radio station, but internet leveled the playing field.
Definitely.
For you, for me, for anybody that wants to get out in the business, and whereby, as opposed to dealing with a middleman, I've never been big on a middleman. If you're going to deal with it, deal directly with the source,
Makes sense, yeah.
So, yeah, reach out, ReggieGay.com, and send me your MP3 file. If it's an audio, send me your MP4 video file if it's video you want us to consider. Now, there's no guarantee. We listen. And if the content meets specification, then, of course, we'll support it.
Right.
If it doesn't, Ron,
Okay.
Here's what I do. I turn it into a teaching moment.
That's good. So you give them advice. You don't just turn them
Right.
straight down.
You're not ready for this yet. Here's what I recommend you go do. And all you can do is recommend. You can't tell people what to do. People do what they want, but it kind of gives me the opportunity to soften the blow, because sometimes people can get discouraged when, they say, oh, well, he didn't like, no, it's not that I didn't like your song. You're just going to need to go back and try it again.
Gotcha.
There you go.
So, speaking of that, have you ever, broke any artists? Ever, found an artist that's found you and you played their gospel music on your radio station and they came to be bigger now?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially around Atlanta. Atlanta's loaded.
Oh, I believe
with
it.
talent.
I believe
just
it.
Church talent.
Yes, it's
people
a
can
magnet.
sing. Yeah. God, the list is too numerous. I won't.
Okay.
Yeah, so it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And I want people to remember, Ron, all it takes is one hit.
That's all it takes.
All it takes is one hit.
Yeah,
you bring me good music, My responsibility is not to play people's music to make them famous.
Mm-hmm.
My responsibility is to play good music.
Gotcha.
So if you come to me and want me to make you famous, I'm not your guy. But if you bring me a good song, then I can help you promote your message. I won't have to sell it. People listen,
Speaking of good songs, what's your favorite, black gospel song? If people want to get into black gospel, what would you tell them to go listen to right now?
You know what I'm liking right now? People can say what they want about him, but he has revolutionized the industry. That doggone Kirk Franklin.
Oh yeah. He brought everything together. He kind of
he ushered gospel music to the next generation.
He did, yeah.
Baby, gospel is not precious. Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand no more. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that stuff has been thrown away. Gospel music is not Mahalia Jackson, How I Got Over. Gospel music these days is not singing, ooh, Jesus, when the gates swing open, I'm going to walk in. That's not what it is anymore.
Right.
Now, the stuff is still out there, and programmers like Reggie Gay will find a way to mix it into a music stage, a rotation. Mm-hmm. You don't throw it away.
Right.
It's a part of the heritage and the legacy of black gospel music. But when I tell you he is reaching the Gen X, the Gen Z, whatever they're calling them now, generation, he's partnered with Maverick City Music. Chandler, what is Chandler's last name? I see Chandler, but I can't call his last name right now. That stuff that he's producing, it is incredible. They went in 2022. How do you do this? They went into a major mainstream mainline prison in Miami, Florida. Uh-huh. Took the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Somehow got the approval to record it, and then turned around and packaged it and sold it. Did you hear what I just
So
said?
the video, like the video of them
So
doing
the
it.
video, the music, he's got a cut out there right now. Some of you listening to the podcast.
Wait, so like they made music with the prisoners or
With the prisoners.
Oh,
They turned
Wow.
the cameras on in a very unscripted setting. See,
Yeah.
we're into this reality TV thing right now, and people just want to kind of feel the whole gamut, you know what I mean?
Right.
So what they did is they turned the cameras on, and they had great audio. They had a little light here, a little light there. Those are real inmates on that video with Kirk Franklin and Maverick City singing the song. One of the hits is Bless Me. Pull it up on YouTube for those of you that are tuning into the podcast right now. Pull up Bless Me, Kirk Franklin, Maverick City. Those are real inmates mixed in with other people.
wow, yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah.
I mean, how utterly revolutionary.
Yeah.
You're taking the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ to people that really need the gospel, you know?
Speaking of feeling, listening to pain, and hearing pain in music. I mean, I bet
my
you really heard that
gosh.
pain in music. No,
And
yeah.
it's stuff like that that I look for. It's stuff like that that compels me to think out of the box.
Okay.
Anybody that's broadcasting, Ron, even with your ideas, I encourage you and anybody that's listening to the podcast, think out of the box. We're not doing it business as usual anymore. Not at all.
Actually, speaking of memorable moments, what are some memorable moments you can speak on, in your life of, radio hosting and, media world in general?
Ooh, memorable moments. You've heard of Tom Joyner, right?
Yeah.
Okay, who don't Tom Joyner, right? Yeah. Tom Joyner is the godfather of African American radio. Tom sold ABC radio years ago, eventually reached media on the idea of syndication, and he's on in, I think it was 150 markets. And then they figured out a way to localize Tom Joyner as a national host, localize him by making it sound like he was in Atlanta and DC and Chicago and these different markets simultaneously. Right. Anyway, I was on my way to Los Angeles for something years ago, and I decided I wanted to leave out a day early and stop in Dallas. Was the time. That's where Tom Joyner was broadcasting.
Okay.
I worked indirectly with Tom with Kiss 104 radio station in Atlanta. So I knew Tom. Tom knew Reggie, and I said, "Hey Tom, look, I want to come to. Can I come and visit?" Sure, come on by. I had died and gone to heaven. This is Tom Joyner. I'm in Tom Joyner's.
Yeah.
You asked me about a moment in my career. That's one of
That's your idol.
I am sitting in Tom Joyner's. Ron, I had died and gone to heaven.
You never know where he take you.
Jesus, you know what I mean?
That's how it goes.
And to watch him, Tom Joyner was a masterful pro. A lot of what I do these days as I produce my shows is a direct result of being in the company of Tom Joyner. That's one. The other one was years ago, I was on my way to LA again, and spent a lot of time in LA and Los Angeles. And I was at my house in Atlanta, and my middle brother, Jeffrey, was there visiting. And remember the TV show of the 90s, Saved by the Bell?
Yes.
Casey Kasem made cameo appearances on that show all the time. And so I was sitting there with Jeff and my brother Jeffrey, and I said, I wonder if I could meet Casey Kasem while I'm in LA. And as soon as I said it, I began to discourage myself. He'll never. My brother Jeffrey, who knew how optimistic I was, said, "What, you, Mr. Optimistic, gonna talk yourself out of your own opportunity?"
Right.
He convicted me immediately. So long story short, I found an address for Casey Kasem, and a phone number. I went on this book, this broadcasting book. I forget the name of the company, but anyway, I called it, and some lady answered, and it was Casey Kasem's studio. And she says, Mr. Kasem's not here right now, but I'll take your message and I'll have him call you back. And I'm not just cordial, okay, thank you. Click, yeah, right. Casey Kasem called me back. So I started writing a letter because I got an address now. It was going to be a couple of months before I get to LA. Anyway, about an hour later, I wrote this letter, and I was on the phone with a friend of mine reading it to him, one of my best friends who went to Eastern as well.
Okay.
And so I'm on the phone, Ryan, and the phone rings. In the early days of call waiting, you're on the phone, you get the big beep. You know, remember that?
Yeah.
You're too young to remember that, right? Anyway, I said, hold on, Sandra. I said, somebody called, and I clicked over, and it was a telemarketer. I don't want what you selling. Click, and I went back over to Sandra. Hey, want to buy some old damn telemarketer. So we got back into the conversation. Well, it wasn't 60 seconds. Beep, another beep. Hold on, Sandra. This ain't nothing but this old doggone telemarketer calling back again.
Yeah.
I clicked over. Hello! Ron. On the other end of the phone,
Yeah.
Casey Kasem.
Oh,
I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. I answered the phone with an attitude and it's Casey Kasem.
right, yeah. No.
I knew his voice immediately. Anyway, to make a long story short,
yeah.
he was so kind to me. I told him who I
That's
was.
good.
He didn't know me from a can of paint. So
That's
what
good
does
he
that
called
say
back.
about,
I mean,
Casey Kasem in the 80s and the 90s? He was colossal DJ. He was on hundreds of thousands
Right.
of radio stations with America's Weekly Top 40. And Casey Kasem is on the phone with Reggie Gay.
good
Are
time
you
to call back.
serious?
That's-
Jesus. He was very kind. He was receptive. I went to his studio. He said, well, come on by the studio. He was in Culver City, California, near LAX Airport, in this horrible looking little pink building. You would never know all that was going on in their building.
Right.
Another instance. I'm sitting in your studio here now, Ron. I'm sitting in the studio looking at I had died and gone to heaven again.
Oh, man.
Those are my stories.
Okay. Beating your idols. Meeting your idols is always a blessing for
Jesus, God Almighty.
sure. We're reminiscent.
Yeah, you took me. That's been years ago, but God, so many pleasant memories. Anyway,
So, people, I'm sorry. So, radio hosts, as a radio host, as having a radio show, how do you stay up to date, with like the music that you want to play? Like, what do you go to find like the latest music, the latest trends people listen to?
everything's online now. There are industry websites that I trust. Can't trust everything because there's a lot of stuff out here that just posts stuff and it's not legitimate. I follow the legitimate sources to keep up with the trend of things.
Okay.
What's hot on gospel radio right now. So to answer your question, that's what I do.
Okay. So, if people wanted to hear a certain song on your radio station, how will they go about? Can they contact you to have?
Absolutely,
listen
they
to it?
can. Yeah, if you go to the website, ReggieGay.com, my telephone's there. I'm not one of those websites you got to dig through 16 pages to get to the phone number. Not me. No, that's the radio training from Eastern, again, that taught me brevity. Say it. Why say it in 100 words when you can say it in 10? Just get to the point.
Right.
And if people come to your website, people want what they want. I don't want to have to jump through 16 hoops to get what I really want. In this case, it's a phone number. And on my website, my information is prominently displayed. So I'm easy to access. You don't have to run me down. And here's another thing. I really do return everybody's phone call.
That's good.
How many times have I called people back and they were like, oh.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, baby, you called me. Now
Right.
how can I help you? It is endearing because people then, once the shock is worn off, then it teaches people how incredibly important it is that you return everybody's phone calls.
Yep.
You never know what people may have to offer you. You never know. I might not be able to help you, but I returned your phone call.
So, okay, going full circle, man. So how do people, if want to get into the business you're in, have their own radio show, have their own radio, TV show, things of that nature? How do they go about doing it? How will they, be able to achieve that, get to where you're at?
Well, one, you need to consider enrolling in programs like Eastern offers, where they will teach you the theoretical aspect of the business. Okay, you got to have the theory first. You remember the movie Karate Kid?
Yeah.
Wax on,
Like so, okay, yeah.
wax off.
The basics.
The basics. You got to have the fundamentals first. And that's what Eastern taught me. Eastern taught me the fundamentals of the business. They gave me the tools. So anybody that's interested in going to the broadcasting business, the business has changed. In off-camera conversations, you and I have talked about how when I was a student, we had two sources, radio and TV. That's it. These days, my gosh, you guys have TV, radio, the internet, TikTok, Facebook. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But the principles and the work ethic is still the same.
Right.
You got to know how to put the content together. So I would suggest anybody that's interested in the business, look into programs like Eastern, whereby you can go and learn the fundamentals of the business. You're going to need that foundation to stand on to sustain your career. I am sustained because I learned the business at Eastern Kentucky University in Richmond, Kentucky.
Okay. So, you've said all these religious quotes, I can see you're deeply in the church, in the Bible. Have you ever thought about being a preacher? I mean, I know your dad was on the board of deacons. So, I mean, I feel like, that's something that I'm surprised it didn't lead you that way into that area.
I used to think, and you never know what God, may do. People sometimes feel like when you get to up in years and you get to a certain age that, your life is over. Not me. Number one, I intend to work as long as I have breath in my body. That's the first thing. I used to think that I was called to the pulpit to pastor. I used to think that. Not saying that God can't do that. He may still do that in my life. Yeah. But what I discovered years ago, Ron, was the radio station microphone is my pulpit. The microphone with ReggieGay.com and the camera for the Reggie Gay Gospel TV show, that is my pulpit. So that's why I hold fast to those principles that I learned at Providence Baptist Church on Howells Creek in Winchester. Scripture. I'm not religious. There's a difference. People that are religious quote scriptures and ain't living it. Spiritual is what I said at the onset of our conversation here today. Everybody needs to be motivated from a higher plane at some point in your life and career.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I choose to be spiritual. So I got over the notion of thinking the only place that I could serve and minister was to be a pastor of a church. When God enlightened me and said, Reggie, you've been preaching for years behind the microphone. Ta-da! I just have evolved with it, Ron. I've just evolved. I didn't allow myself to become stale. I kept reinventing Reggie Gay. My appearance, I looked at myself on television one night and I looked like somebody's granddaddy. No, you're going to be on television. You got to be competitive.
Image is everything, for sure.
You're going to be in the broadcasting business, whether it be at a radio station, a television station, where you're going to expand your footprint with your own platform on the internet. You have to be competitive in your appearance. You got to be competitive in your content. What about you would make me want to give you my time to listen to you or to look at your content? It's the whole picture.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, so what does Reggie Gay do, man, in his free time? Like, I just asked that because, looking at your website, looking at the things you did, I scrolled down, I seen a picture of you in an airplane. Do you fly planes?
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Ironically enough, I have a pilot license
think
too.
out of the box, brother. Yeah. I'm telling you, think out of the box.
So that's one of your hobbies?
It is. I posted on Facebook, what did I say? Give me a second. Pardon
good.
us.
Yeah, I was gonna say I've flown planes too, so it was very ironic that we're sitting there.
Yeah,
and you would never think you would never think either one of us would be doing that. You just never know. You can't judge a book by its cover at all.
I something came to mind earlier, and I'm trying to remember what I said. With Facebook, you can post stuff, right? And just let me figure out. I want to share this with your podcast audience. Maybe this will help somebody. Life begins at the end of the comfort zone. Go try something new today.
Yep. That's true. Said it. Yep.
People are just so boring. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yep, I know.
You got the whole world at your disposal. You keep doing the same thing over and over, expecting better
all those
results.
things God's blessed you with, and you decided to. Yeah.
So I decided I want to get an airplane, and I flew it. My sister thought I was crazy.
So we're good.
I did. And you know what I found interesting? You maybe you share the same perspective. What I found interesting about flying was you're above everything. It was just so tranquil. You could look below. Here's the comparison. I'm in the airplane, flying over all of this stuff.
Right.
But I'm above it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was just so incredibly peaceful.
Oh yeah, it's like the most like surreal thing ever.
Absolutely it is.
Especially when you're playing by yourself, just being there.
Yeah.
It's like
and then then when you land, you come back to reality.
You come back to reality.
Here we are. So I do fly. That was an interesting experience. Used to ride horses with my granddaddy.
I'll believe it. I've rode horses too in Kentucky.
Yeah, from Kentucky.
Yeah.
What do you mean you ain't been on a horse? You're from Kentucky,
I thought I rode with horses.
Yeah. So I just encourage people to think out of the box. Don't be afraid to try something new. I have people all the time. I'm so bored. Well, what are you going to do about it? You know?
Right. Yeah, do something. Yeah.
In my career, in the late 90s, I could see it beginning to level off. Now, I can either be happy with status quo, with it leveling off. I can get up off my fat butt and go do some different things. Build my footprint on the internet. You know what I mean? Takes time, though.
Well, I mean, I'm not surprised you do all these things. I mean, like, to be able to do what you do and do it well, I mean, you have to be able to think outside the box and have, like, some balls, excuse my words, to be able to, like, get to where you're at.
Right.
You got to be able to.
Well, you be willing to take a calculated risk.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be foolish and jump, Geronimo, and just jump off,
Right, yeah.
No, that's not how it works. You have to look at stuff and take calculated risk. Remember, calculated risk could provide, great return, but if you're never willing to take the risk,
Right. Exactly.
So.
All right, Reggie, man, we're going to wrap it up, man. So,
Yes, sir.
Tell people, where they can find you at, what you have going in the future they can look for and things of that nature.
Well, okay. Thank you again. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I want to encourage you because when I look at you, I see Reggie Gay all over again. Years ago, but here I am. I was like, I'm looking at myself in the mirror,
Right.
So I want to encourage you. I want you to hold fast. Don't be afraid. Think out of the box with it, Ron.
Yes,
don't be
sir.
afraid to speak to people and say hello. You and I have talked about ratings and revenue. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Learn how to sell sponsors, all the above. I'm excited because I've just found out that I'm going to be inducted into the National Black Radio Hall of Fame.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
I was wondering, I meant to ask you too if you won any awards, but I mean, that seems long overdue.
Yeah.
How long you been in this business? How long you been in this business? How many years?
If I tell you, I'll tell you how old I am. No, I'm just kidding.
That's all good.
No. And actually, at this time on your podcast in March of 2023, in October of 23, it will be 40 years in the business.
Oh, man, yeah, definitely Hall of Famer, for sure. Yeah.
So I got the notice, and I'm like, God never lets faithfulness go unrewarded. Never. So anybody that's out there that may be in your 5th or 6th year or your 10th year, and you may be getting discouraged in your spirit, like my daddy, pick one thing and stick with it. The business will try you again and again on your loyalties. You said you want to do this. Are you still sure? Yes, I'm sure. You said you want to do that. Are you still? Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, well, here it comes. Are you still sure? Ron, the business is going to try your loyalties time and time and time.
I believe it.
That's the way it filters out people that don't have a heart for the business. Anyway, so I'm honored, to be inducted in October in Atlanta with folk like Gladys Knight and the Pips and Tom Joyner, Ludacris, all on the same stage that night. It's gonna be like, you talk about a surreal moment.
Oh, you been on the stage?
Yeah, all on the same stage.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'll be in Atlanta. I'll shoot you some details, maybe if you're around.
Oh yeah, I
Great
might be around.
Networking opportunity.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. You allow me, I'll be around.
So I'm excited about that. I won Stellar Award. Stellar Awards is gospel music's version of the Grammys.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Stellar Award in 2020.
Okay.
And then the list goes on and on. I am grateful for every acknowledgement. There's no big I, no little U's with these awards. If somebody thinks of Reggie Gay, I appreciate it. They can get me online at reggiegay.com. Streams audio 24 hours a day. Listen on any of your desktop, your computer devices, desktop, laptop, or your tablet. And then because I follow trends, remember Eastern taught me to follow trends.
Facts.
Now people get content on their mobile units. So I have an app in the marketplace, Google, App Store, and Amazon.
On my phone.
Yeah, download Reggie Gay's app to your mobile unit and Bluetooth that audio. There you go. That would be him. Who's that Gomer? Yeah, so there you have it. I appreciate the opportunity, brother.
Oh, yeah, it's a blessing having you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so very much. Reach out anytime you need to. I'm always delighted to help point ambitious brothers like yourself. If I can. If I can do it, you can too.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
God bless.
Yep. All right. That's it.